We're talking about one big announcement. We got Larry Hogan jumping into the race. Steve Daines, who is the head of the what in the Senate, Thomas?
The National Republican Senate Committee.
Senate committee, essentially trying to get, senators elected. And the big thing with the Republicans this cycle is they have a favorable map. Montana, which is a seat that John Tester holds, is usually a Republican state. Obviously, West Virginia is open. That's going to get taken over. And then there's a lot of other open races. You've got Michigan, you've got Arizona, and now Maryland, which you never would have thought of, is open. And Larry Hogan, the very popular governor, is jumping in. There's a couple reasons. Yes, some people are already writing this off that it's going to be maybe a 10-point loss for Larry Hogan. But there's a couple reasons why I think he could at least make it interesting. I'm not saying he's for sure going to win. People don't remember how popular he was as governor. I mean, their current governor, Moore, who's a Democrat, Wes Moore, he's at about 60% approval. Larry Hogan was at about 70% approval in Maryland, which is one of the deepest blue states there is. And yes, is national politics a little more different than state politics? Sure, but one thing Larry Hogan and Thomas watched his video announcement video, and so did I. One thing he stressed is against the national party politics, that it's time for more reasonable voices who are actually going to pass legislation. You don't have to sacrifice on your core principles, but you're going to pass legislation. You're going there to do something, and there's still 9 months left. It's likely Trump and Biden are going to be the nominees. There's still 9 months left of the opposite. It's going to be chaos and stuff like that. So that message might resonate. I'm not saying for sure. But anyways, Thomas, thoughts on Larry Hogan getting into the race?
Well, I mean, it was probably surprising by everyone because Hogan, for the past, it was like 3 years, the Republicans kept trying to have him run, and he kept saying no, no, no. Then, like, this is like the last day, hours before the deadline, he says, I'm running. And I think Maryland, I mean, it's a Biden plus 30 something state. So I don't think Hogan can win. I mean, sure, maybe the work like somehow scenario where the Republicans have like an extremely good night or something. Not saying that's going to happen, but in some hypothetical situation. But I
But
feel
do
like
you think then there's a bigger purpose behind it? So say, do you think he might think he can't win? Do you think there's a bigger purpose going on behind the scenes?
I mean, are you saying for like a Larry Hogan or the Republicans?
For the Republicans, yeah, like maybe someone
I
with
mean, I feel like what they wanted to do with Hogan was because Hogan is pretty good with his money, I'd say, kind of wealthy in a way. Um, and he could probably make Chuck Schumer have to spend in Maryland and take some resources away from the other states like Ohio or Montana or Nevada or Arizona or Michigan or Wisconsin. So that would take a lot of resources away. And even though the Democrats might win that seat, they will waste some resources because back in 2020, the Democrats were throwing money at South Carolina, Kansas, Montana. They were
even
just trying to make
Kentucky,
the Republicans
trying to
spend
get
a
Mitch
lot of money,
McConnell
and
there?
that worked because we took a lot of money off that could have been spent for John James in Michigan, David Perdue in Georgia, and all these seats that we could have won if we had that money.
Yeah, and that's going to be the battle because Democrats, we talked about a couple states that they have open seats. They also are holding a lot of seats, even though it's a favorable map for the Republicans. You've got Montana, which of course we said is Tester, Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin, Nevada, I forget who, Jackie Rosa, maybe, or right, Thomas.
Yeah, something like that, Rosen.
Pennsylvania, you have Casey, and then Ohio, you have Sherrod Brown. So a lot of incumbent seats, which is going to be big because especially back in 2022, with a lot of expensive primaries for the Republicans, they were fighting each other left and right. Was January 6th bad? Was it not bad? Is Trump the guy? Is Trump not the guy? All this kind of stuff. Abortion, Roe v. Wade, what's your position on that? All this infighting and all the primaries, and it led to a lot of losses. They lost us one seat in total, but that's going to be the big factor though, Tom, is how these primaries kind of shake out. So I guess what is the ideal thing? Just kind of what Steve Daines has been doing, telling them like behind the doors, hey, you did your best effort, but we got to win. Or
Well, I think what the thing with Steve Daines, he took something what Rick Scott couldn't do. Rick Scott in 2022 let these expensive primaries happen in all these states like Ohio. We had Vance and all these other guys fighting it out. We had Pennsylvania, McCormick and Oz fighting it out. Then you had Nevada, Laxalt and Sam Brown fighting it out. Then you had in Arizona. Masters, Lamon, and that Bruno guy fight it out. Like that was the biggest issue we had. We did not consolidate our money that we actually needed when it came to the general election. So Steve Daines' idea when it came to recruiting candidates were finding people that could self-finance their primary campaign, which was someone like Jim Justice. That's why he recruited him to run for Senate, and he was also a really popular governor in West Virginia. Then you have Montana, Tim Sheehy, who is also someone who could self-finance. Eric Holb's in Wisconsin, who's someone who could self-finance. In Michigan, he's recruited Mike Rogers to run for Senate. Then you have Pennsylvania, he recruited Dave McCormick. So his idea is they could spend the money to boost their name for the primary, not have any serious primary challenge, so we could have that money we saved from donations for the NRSC to spend it in the general instead of blowing it all in the primary.
Do you think a few questions then about some specific races? Do you think Michigan, because you look at the Midwest, you got Wisconsin is not an open seat, Pennsylvania is not an open seat, two pretty fairly popular incumbents. Michigan is an open seat. Do you see that being more competitive than say Wisconsin or Pennsylvania based on that fact?
I mean, I think it's going to depend on how the Republicans are going to message it because the Michigan GOP is in absolute chaos right now.
And
You
they're
have
broke. Yeah.
Christina Caramo and Pete Hoekstra. They're fighting out who's the actual GOP chair, even though the RNC recognized Hoekstra as the GOP chair. Caramo doesn't want to leave, so they have to figure that crap out in like 9 months. Not even 9 months. They need to figure out in like a month at
Yeah, they've
most.
got it before the primary at least. So another race I'm kind of confused about is Arizona, right? So you had Carrie Lake who just ran as the governor. She got close, she still apparently doesn't believe she lost. But anyways, that's besides the point. She's running for Senate now. She's polling very high. I think she's got like a 30-point lead on Mark Lamb, of course, who's the sheriff who is running in there. Is there going to be a behind the doors like because I think Steve Daines just endorsed Carrie Lake a couple days
He
ago.
did.
Is there going to be talks to try to get Mark Lamb to drop out, or are they just going to try to beat him in the primary and see where it goes?
I mean, that's hard to say because I don't think Lamb's gaining any traction. Like, sure, he's a good guy. I mean, I think he's done good things as a sheriff, but of course, Carrie Lake has like she's popular when it comes to the GOP in Arizona. I don't know if you want to debate if that's a good thing or not with how bad the Republicans have ran their campaigns in Arizona in the past like 4 years. And the biggest thing with Carrie Lake is sure she has that name brand, but she ticked off a lot of these independent voters, and will she learn her lesson from what she did in 2022? Can she actually learn from that and learn how to fix it when it comes to 2024?
Yeah, we're seeing Trump, especially in the poll, and it's just polls right now. We don't know. We're 9 months from the
Sure.
election. We're seeing Trump, especially pull in some maybe non-voters, people who aren't going to vote, but like, man, Biden's really not got it together. Maybe Trump saying all these things I like. I'm going to vote for Trump. I don't know if Carrie Lake would have that effect. I think she just has the base, and then not much else. But we'll see. Last one I wanted to ask about, which is one Republicans I know they don't want to talk about, but I'm going to bring it up anyways, is Texas. Obviously, you have Ted Cruz who's running for a third term. Again, he's pretty popular within the Republican Party, in terms of the voter bloc. However, Allred, who used to play for the Titans, by the way. I'm not saying that's an endorsement or anything. I'm just mentioning that he is polling well. And we also got to remember in 2018, yes, it was a Democrat plus 9 year nationally. Beto O'Rourke came within like 2 points of beating Ted Cruz. Voter turnout should be fairly high. Is this a race? I'm not saying for sure that they should be scared about, but they should be looking at in Texas.
I mean, I would say yes because how Ted Cruz is really polarizing. I think 2018. I think he was supposed to win by like over like 5, 6 points, and then when the Fox News called it, and he only won by like two. People were like, "Holy crap!" Like
Right.
this gave the Democrats a lot of momentum. I mean, sure, we could argue Beto O'Rourke and Colin are not the same kind of people. That is a good argument, but I think what Cruz is getting a lot of money from donations and all that. So if he could figure out how to, win the rural areas of Texas, which is pretty easy to do, He's just going to have to figure out a way how to stagnate what's going on in the Dallas suburbs and Houston suburbs. And you can't really do much about the Austin suburbs, but you could do enough in the San Antonio, Houston, the triangle. And maybe replay what Trump did in the Rio Grande Valley. And see if that could get him all win by like a point or two. Because Texas is trending left, and it's gonna get scary.